Verol? Okay,
Yeah.
seeing you now.
Okay. Great.
I was like, oh, please. We had a good test run and then, so technology, but
Yeah.
not gonna stress.
Right.
Ready for some of your mental vitamins and for our therapy. So just gonna give it a couple more seconds. How are you?
I'm good for the most part. I'm good. A bit tired, but all in all, I'm good and I'm good.
Okay. Well, I am feeling good, and we will get into that activity a little bit. So,
And I can't wait to get to that activity.
so hey guys, welcome. So, as we get started, welcome again to Therapy Tuesdays or Therapy Tuesday here with Art Therapy JA, which is run by me, Lesli-Ann Belnavis, Elliott. And so, sorry, the breeze. I'm going to just close the window a little bit. So this is a weekly series. If this is your first time joining us, welcome. Every week, I'll be featuring different professionals in mental health, expressive therapies, medicine, you name it. And we'll be focusing on different topics. This month, we're kind of focusing on issues or situations relating to COVID, or how would I say, Verol, things that are impacting us because of COVID. So today, my guest is Mr. Verol Billett, who is an Associate Clinical Psychologist who works in private practice at Caribbean Talks to Teens, one of the agencies I used to work at, and with at the Kai Morgan, an associate. That's how you pronounce it? She would kill me.
It's K.
KAD.
KD Morgan
And
and Associates.
Associates, right. So that's with Dr. Kai Morgan, who also worked with as well.
Right.
And he conducts psychological assessments and psychotherapy. So, Verol, is there anything else that I'm missing about you that you might want to share about yourself?
That pretty much sums up most of what I do. I love psychology. If I didn't love it, I wouldn't be doing it. And it allows me to do a wide range of things: therapy, assessments, counseling, presentations, interacting with people from all over. And I find it fulfilling. Yeah.
Same.
And I get to collab with great professionals such as yourself. So, yeah.
Speaking of, we have a history which is very interesting. Very interesting.
Very interesting.
My journey and different persons, and now I'm working with them, or they return home, or it's crazy. So, Verol, as we get started today, I know we're focusing on, I forgot to put that here. I'll just paste it. Okay, I'll do that after. So, as we get started, one of the things that I'm trying to do every interview is continue the act of a check-in activity, which is what we do in art therapy or in different therapies, different therapeutic approaches with clients. We'll start a session with a check-in and end with one and a check-out with the client, and that symbolizes or sets room for modeling transitions, continuity, all sorts of stuff. I'm sure you have your style.
Temperature checks.
Right. Well, we can talk about temperature checks when we get into our topic. So today we have Verol Billett, Associate Clinical Psychologist, who will be talking to us about stress and anxiety in students. And so as we're about to start, Verol, let's do the check-in. So the check-in activity is that I want you can draw it or think of a shape, color, word, movement, or sound that shows how you're feeling now. And it can be a combination.
I can describe it, I think. I know the shape would be a circle, and the colors would be um, a good, it's not a full mixture because I'm not a fan of the color that it creates, but it's a coexisting of the two colors, and that's blue and red within the circle.
And what's the big?
Probably
Go ahead.
Probably with different gradients of the colors. But yeah, I think that would describe or capture how I'm feeling.
What's the feeling?
I'm calm. I'm cool, and I am excited at the same time.
Okay, so
yeah.
A nice little.
And the hope is right, and the hope is that I believe in continuity. So in addition to you continuing your series, also whatever we talk about today, we are able to take it and expand it further so that other people can hear and learn and so on.
Yes, I agree. I'm for it. I'm for the pushing forward movement during this whole season. And speaking of, I kind of cheated and did mine before. The feeling that I have, or the word that's been coming up for me, is grateful. And funny enough, the color that came to me was brown. And I was thinking of hands. And so these are abstract hands, grateful, and then I wanted other colors in the middle. So, and for the viewers, so I'm grateful, or gratitude is my feeling. So, Verol, let's get started. You tell us a little bit about yourself, and did you tell us who you work with, and can you tell us what exactly is an Associate Clinical Psychologist, and what do they do?
Okay, so an Associate Clinical Psychologist is a psychologist with a master's degree. That's basically what it is. And what I do, I work a lot. Over the years, I've been working a lot with children and adolescents. One of the places I am attached to, Caribbean Talks to Teens, it's for children and adolescents, and we do get quite a bit of them there. And I do get to work with children and adolescents at KD Morgan and Associates as well and I get to work with adults there too. So all in all, I get to work with a bit of everybody.
A mix. High five for the mix. So, with the onset of COVID, this has caused a drastic change in how our students are able to learn right now. Those who, I know the government changed they had to kind of go with what's happening, and the first thing was to move school online. And that's really, I think, has impacted a lot of our students. And then I know, like, within this week, there are decisions being made about CXC, and I'm just like, Jesus. But there are all these things happening, the concern about access to learning and schoolwork, teaching strategies mostly being online, and then we have students that have different learning abilities and capabilities, and then that's a lot of screen time. I know for persons like me, I'm very hands-on, need art, need that kind of one-on-one kind of learning. I'm sure combined with the fairs and the shift that we've had to make, and being conscious about our health and all of that stuff with the COVID, this is probably triggering a lot of emotional and psychological responses in our children at this time. can you explain what anxiety and stress are and the difference between the two and how this could be impacting our students right now?
Anxiety is you're consistently worrying about something that is going to happen. You're not sure if it's going to happen. Has to do with uncertainty, not knowing how things will turn out, and worrying that it will not turn out well for you or in the best way possible. So this consistent excessive worry puts you in a space where you are constant. It's on your mind constantly, and it preoccupies your thoughts. For stress, how I like to put stress is that it's this burden that you feel based on what is going on in your environment, and the burden is just not getting lighter anytime. Well, not necessarily anytime, but it's not getting any lighter. But then again, stress can be short term, it can be long term. Short term, for example, you're studying for an exam. Kids are studying for exams, right? And the exam comes. For example, it's math. I was just taught math, right? Right? The exam, you study, you try to do your best, you're worrying, so the anxiety is there, but you're stressing about it because this burden, you feel this burden, and do I have all these resources within me to do well, to pass the exam? Mm-hmm. That level of stress could actually push you to work even harder, right? However, it could also go the opposite way, where you just give up because it's so much, and you just don't. It's overwhelming, so you just don't study at all, and you end up failing. So, it can also be even more damaging when the thing that is causing the stress persists for a long time. For a long time, for example, using this situation with COVID. Now, for the fifth formers and sixth formers, CAPE and CSEC has been pushed back to July 27th. Okay. So now we have a deadline. But before, there are some students who are stressing because they didn't know when it's going to be. And the worry is there that, oh my God, I have to be studying consistently or constantly until whenever. There was a discussion at one point about, okay, should we put it off until later on this year? And that was some of the kids, I can tell you.
Too much.
They weren't taking that well.
Yeah, that's tricky. That's tricky to deal with, because then it the longer it stays, as you say, it's like a rolling,
Mm-hmm.
These bottled up.
Mm-hmm.
And how does anxiety, or how can anxiety and stress manifest in the students right now?
Wow. You can see it in various ways. You can see frustration, you can see low energy, you can see uncontrollable emotions. They're shouting, the temper tantrums, this whole feeling of just can't bother, right? Sleeping a lot, not sleeping much. There's a change in sleeping patterns. For younger kids, you probably have bedwetting. Some older kids may also experience bedwetting. They withdraw. Mm-hmm. They withdraw. Lack of concentration. Things like crying for pain in parts of the body, such as one of the most common areas that they will cry for, and I find it's very true with younger children, or mostly true with younger children. Tummy aches.
I was just about to say that, because I was gonna throw a big word. I was gonna say, do they have psychosomatic responses, and then ask you to explain what the psychosomatic response is.
Yes, we use the term psychosomatic, which basically means you are feeling a pain, and it's not just children who will experience these things, adults will as well. You're feeling a pain, and there's no medical explanation for the pain. Right. So, and it can be the tummy ache, chest pains, headaches. It can be, as far as I'm concerned, any parts, but those are some of the common parts that people cry for pain. And it could be psychosomatic.
Okay. I know for me, in terms of art therapy, stress and anxiety may come out differently in the art. And so sometimes I might have a client who we want to explore what's happening, how they're feeling. I might use like a body scan where they have to create and identify the emotions, and then we frame how they respond to it. You smile, so I figure that's something that you use as well.
We use body scans as well, but obviously we're not drawing here. We're just quieting ourselves and assess our own bodies from the crown of our heads to the sole of our feet, and try to figure out what's happening with our body, within our bodies, and where we are feeling the pain, what's happening, or where we are feeling the emotion, and that sort of thing.
How can parents pay attention now, even more so now? I mean, because they have their stressors as well. And let me not just say parents alone, but caregivers, because not all children are living with parents.
Adults in general.
What can they look for right now in terms of, understanding, okay, this might really be really stressful for my child right now. With the schooling and everything, how can they be possibly supported, or what can they pay attention to?
I guess a rule of thumb is, if your child is doing something or engaging in a particular behavior, exhibiting a particular behavior that is unusual for your child, then chances are something isn't right. Or if it is way out of proportion than usual. Once it is not the usual for your child, then chances are something isn't right. And it could simply be that they're exhibiting these behaviors because, one, they're not being listened to, right? They're not being heard, and it's not just about them talking. Because sometimes for children, they do not have the vocabulary to speak, and therefore you'd have the behavioral or the psychosomatic manifestations of whatever it is that they're feeling on the inside, or what's going on the inside, right? So you really can't expect children to communicate at the same level as adults. So you have to be keen. You have to use your eyes and ears and see how things are going. When they want to speak, don't shy away. Don't shut them down. Their experiences are just as valid as everybody else, just as valid as adults. Even if you may think, oh my God, they're drama kings and queens, or they're just blowing it out of proportion, it is still their experience. And the best way, I think, is to listen to them and help them understand that, hey, this is what it is you're going through. I'm a big advocate for teaching children to use the names of emotions. Even if you have to print out a card with the different emotions on them and say, okay, today show me what you're feeling. Point to the one that you're, or the ones that you're feeling.
Or the expressions, because maybe they don't, or the words, it's better if I see a face or something that I can relate to that says this is how I feel.
Right.
Yeah.
And the other thing I'd say is, if you're listening, you also can share your own experiences with them, so they understand that, one, you're not alone in this. Two, you're not weird. Three, as an adult, I am also experiencing stress and anxiety. This is how I'm dealing with it, and you can And if you're dealing with it well, children are great observers. They will model what they see. If you're doing it, they can also model it as well. Right? And also, I would suggest that try your very best to respond rather than to react.
Can you explain the difference?
I'm gonna
Because
explain.
in our culture, we will just react and you must just deal with it.
Exactly. I got this from a book I was reading by, I think his name is Dr. Kevin Lehman. Right? And what he was saying is that the example he used for react is when you go to the doctor and you're receiving a treatment, if he says, when he used the word react in regards to the treatment, it's something to the effect of you are reacting to the treatment, which is seen as a negative thing, right? Right? Versus if he's saying that you're responding to the treatment, you are getting along well with whatever it is that they're doing. Right? So what he did, he flipped it to say that it's a book about parenting, how to help your hurting child. And what he's saying is, when children come to us, whether it is through the temper tantrums, they're shouting, da-da-da-da, instead of meeting fire with fire and trying to dominate, center yourself and respond. Because the real reason is underneath all of that. And when we respond, we quiet things down. We're able to quiet things down much quicker and better, and conversation can happen. And the needs of the child and the needs of the parents can be met much easier.
So it might also mean that there would have to be almost like a retraining sometimes of approach with this child.
Yeah, especially for our culture, yes.
So I will share a piece. I mean, this didn't happen during COVID, but the concept of the fact that this child was in an exam year, and I guess the parent was concerned because there are statements that the child was making, and the case was referred to me because they felt that the child was maybe holding something in and needed to get it out. Release. And the best thing to do was to use the art. So somebody says, Verol, that they actually love respond rather than react. They like that. So yeah. I saw this child, and it was exam year, and the core thing was that he was just stressed. Like, I tried to do a breathing exercise to like check in, and they were like this. I gave them a drum,
whole body tense,
and it was just like, You know, most children would be like, and so I was like, wait, there is something there. They're like holding in, and at the core, the parent was a very caring parent, you know, very in tune and had good intentions, but had expectations that when the child comes home after a long day of work, of schoolwork and doing an activity, and although they were in an extracurricular activity, the extracurricular activity was not relaxing for the child. And the parents' view was like, okay, it's 8 o'clock. Why are you playing? You need to be studying your book. You need to go to your bed. And so it was this whole like expectation that you must just work. And the idea of just giving the child time to play would counteract the ability for them to retain any information for the exam. And I brought that up to say, like, we have to have other tools that balance our children, and not always working will mean that it will have they will result in the high grades. It can doing other things as a release for the child. So students now, giving them time to take, a step back, even just acknowledge maybe perhaps their feelings around what's happening. That's a release.
Conversation, healthy communication is key, especially at this time, because we've been living segmented lives. We're living, it's like we're just coexisting in a household. Everybody has a different responsibilities, and we forget about balance. Balance is very important in our lives, right? And I think this is a good time to restore this balance that some of us may have lost. Also, with that, I want parents to understand that no matter how old you are, playtime and downtime is very important for everybody. For children, play is a language that they know and love. So it's about creating that balance. Co-curricular activities should be fun, or extracurricular activities should be fun. It shouldn't just be about the competitions and they are getting the awards, etc. But they should enjoy, because that could be seen as downtime, relaxation time. And after a long day of school, you need relaxation time. The brain needs to rest. Now with COVID and being on classes get shifted to it being online, I've heard of cases where classes begin from 7:30, 8:30 in the morning and goes until 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And I'm like, no. Yes, it is still considered a school day, but at the same time, the same principles don't necessarily translate to online, because again, you're talking about screen time here. You're talking about the pandemic going on and them having to worry about what's going on. Sixth graders, sixth formers worrying about their next step, right? Not having graduation, not seeing their friends. We need to remember that at school is not just about the book and the learning, but there's a whole world of social interaction. Yeah. So some kids are missing the physical and social interaction with their peers, with their teachers, with the general school environment that they don't get online and in the home.
Yeah. And I think that might really be hard for maybe some parents to grasp. Like the even going to school, as you said, that is a structure for the student or the child, which they won't necessarily sometimes get at home. So are there some tips that you have for the students? And, I mean, I know it's general, but in terms of how to handle
work.
Go ahead.
How to handle all that's going on right now.
The anxiety and stressors.
Right. One of the things I want to say is work along with your parents.
Okay.
Work along with your parents. Also, relax. Relax and talk to your parents. Yes, and I'm going to be spitting some truth here because this is what I know based on my work with teenagers. A lot of teenagers and children, a lot of children and teenagers especially, they see their parents as how to put
dragons?
Annoying. Annoying. Right? And miserable and too much. Right? No, what I usually say to them is that they behave like this because they genuinely care. They genuinely care and they love you and they want the best for you. Right? So it is kind of counterproductive if you choose to stay away. Right? And if your parents are willing to listen to you, then I say go and talk.
But what if it's a situation where I don't feel like my parent will listen to me, and then I don't have anybody to talk to?
Very good question. And I always question, do you really have no one to talk to? Right? I mean, if it's not your parents, do you have an uncle or an aunt? Do you have an older cousin? Do you have an older sibling? Can you reach out to a teacher at school? Do you have access to your guidance counselor at school? Mm. I feel that there's usually a lot of times, I will never dare to say 100% of the times, but a lot of times there's always an adult willing to listen to a child, truly listen to a child.
Mm. Another thing oh, go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, you can go ahead.
I was gonna say another thing that I know you and I have like bounced off on cases and stuff is looking at what is in the child's control when dealing with stressors and anxiety. What areas do they have control of? Recognizing what's difficult and what they have control.
The thing with that is some kids may need help with understanding that, and so it's going to be some amount of collaboration with the child and some an adult. I think maybe some older kids can grasp that, and once and after having worked with it for a couple of times, they can develop that habit of sitting down, thinking about, okay, what is within my control? What can I do? What can't I do? And then we have to be careful because sometimes, and I've met up on this myself, some teenagers will be like, well, nothing is in my control. It's whatever.
That's the truth. That's the truth. That's the truth. That's the truth.
Right.
And I guess that's where we also come in as support mechanisms in terms of art therapy and clinical psychology. You were gonna say something, Verol.
Also, develop from young the mindfulness, reflective, meditative practices. So in everything, there's a way to, or in every day, there's a time you can set aside to just sit and breathe, deep breathe and think through things. What am I grateful for? Live from a place of gratefulness. Live, be thankful. Also, to engage in activities and be intentional about it. So I'm going to draw today. What am I going to draw? I'm going to draw my house, and I'm going to color it because I really like my house.
Or they could start to, even in this time, and they could get support from me as well, is have a book that they can keep and create in it, maybe at the beginning of the day before they start schoolwork, or even at the end, set some intentional time to just like to check in the same way that you said in terms of breathing, but checking in maybe creatively, or for those who might not want to draw, they're good with words, but setting some time for themselves, that's another tip.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And for the writers, for writers, personally, I think we are all talented people. No matter how you judge your own skill, we're all talented. And I'll go a step further, that we're all artists. We all can create, and we all can create from the heart. Right? And by doing that, it does allow for some amount of expression. And my thing is, you don't need to, nobody else needs to understand it. You yourself probably don't need to understand it at this point, but it's just about getting it out. And you know where I'm coming from, where this is concerned.
Come on over to my side, Verol. Come on over. But yeah.
Yeah. And the other thing too is to celebrate your strengths, celebrate what's going good, celebrate the small victories. Rolling out of bed and making up your bed and getting dressed is a victory to be celebrated sometimes.
It is. It is. That is actually, I think, major. I was talking to my sister who's a dance movement therapist, and she said the same thing to me. Or I saw her in an interview, and she said the same thing, where it was just the act of getting up out of the bed for somebody might just be a major thing during this time. So, you know, it's the little things and gratitude during that time. So, Verol.
Also,
Go ahead.
hold on, one more thing, and I think this is very important. With anxiety and stress, we tend to blow things up and see things in the big grand picture, and then we're looking at it and we're like, oh my God, this mountain, how am I going to climb? Well, my best suggestion is to take it in small steps. I have this thing where the whole notion of the whole saying, oh, take it one step at a time. My thing sometimes you have to break it down and say 1 hour at a time, 1 minute at a time. Take it slow and steady.
That's a good one. That's a good one. And checking in with that. That's maybe more manageable, because if it really feels
break down manageable,
overwhelming. I mean, when you think about this and what you highlighted earlier, if the child has to study for CXC, then that gets moved, or when the dates get moved, there's uncertainty around that. Then you don't know if you've been exposed to COVID. Your parents are home. It's you know, you're not getting to go out and do something that you love. So that's a lot, you know. So it's like, how do you find a little opening slowly to deal with that? Taking it, I like that, like 5 minutes, and then building up so it's manageable.
Man. 1 second at a time.
Verol, a little bit about you. Did we look at ways in which parents could support? You spoke about that earlier.
I think, yeah, we did. By listening and being there, being open, share your own experiences, that sort of thing.
Okay. So we spoke about, I'm gonna jump back to like your approaches as a clinical psychologist. So you told us what a associate clinical psychologist is, but are there specific, what makes you different from me? I know the difference, but the audience may not know what the difference is. And I can explain our therapy, but what's your approach?
As a therapist, it's the talk therapy, training talk therapy, using various knowledgeable various theoretical frameworks and approaches, very reflective, getting persons to become self-aware, taking control of themselves and their own development, and seeking opportunities to allow for that. But also in my practice, working with children, working with adolescents, and even some adults, for every therapist, it's about making them feel comfortable. So I won't even go into that, right? But it's about getting to know my clients, to know what their strengths are, so I can use their strengths to build their weaknesses. And I think a lot of therapists will do that as well. But also, I tap into the creatives and the expressive stuff a whole lot. So drawing, the writing, the poetry, the acting. I remember there was this one kid who gave me an entire monologue, dramatic monologue for the entire session, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. Right?
So,
but how I approach it, chances are will not be the same. It won't be the same because we don't have the same training as an art therapist, a drama therapist, a dance therapist. Because how you guys approach it is a lot different, and it's a little more technical than I have training for. And I appreciate you guys so much. Right? Because for me, it's about looking for patterns and interpreting and figuring and seeing themes. And I don't think that's all that you guys do. I think you guys do a lot more than that. So yeah.
Well, thank you for that. I was gonna add the difference to talk about my thing, but I like that you, as a psychologist, or my experience, you know, in my training, it was mostly like everybody spoke. And, you know, you're learning now that everybody has different styles. And I think within the Jamaican culture, what I have learned for a long time now is that you have to incorporate the modalities other modalities when working with our culture, whether it's music, dance, drama, art. Am I missing anything? I said drama. Yes, dance, we respond to that. So I noticed that, and I might myself incorporate that. But for those who might be watching for the first time, the difference between Verol and myself is that I am an art therapist and I use art and psychology to help persons express their emotions and issues. So Verol, can you tell?
And there's play therapy as well. Play therapy is very good works very well with small children.
Although.
And of course, the art therapy, I would never discuss art.
No, it's not art. I was actually gonna say, and I've had discussions with Marie Reynolds, who is based with you at Caribbean Thoughts to Teens, who is a play therapist. We've spoken about adults needing play, and I think even last week when I spoke with Brittany Singh Williams, academic coach at Spark Education, we talked about adults needing play. And I think the more that they tap into those, those outlets, it would help. And it would help with the support to their children in the topic that we're dealing with today. What were you going to say?
And I so agree with that, because play allows us to tap into our the inner child. And I think by doing that, coming back up and bringing it out of us, it will help us with a lot of stuff that is going on within ourselves, right? And then, because children see things so simplistically, right? And play allows for it is just what is. It's the imagination. Imagination is such a beautiful thing.
It is.
It's such a beautiful thing.
It is. So overall, can you tell us where persons can reach you and if there are any projects that you have going on right now?
I'm based at Caribbean Thoughts to Teens, which is, as well as KD Morgan and Associates. Caribbean Thoughts to Teens is a child and adolescent wellness center, and that's at 120 Old Hope Road on the compound of St. Peter and Paul. I work with a wonderful set of associates there, other psychologists, therapists, as well as at KD Morgan and Associates, Dr. Kai Morgan. Again, that's at 68 Lady Musgrave Road. Again, another wonderful team of psychologists under the supervision of Kai Morgan, who is also the president of Jamaica Psychological Society, JAMPSY. JAMPSY, yes, JAMPSY. And in terms of projects, I'm not doing anything project-wise. I guess I took on something recently, creating an IG page.
My mental vitamins.
My mental vitamins. Right? And I'm going to try and post every day. The main purpose of using this platform and posting the kind of content that I'm posting is possibly to give persons some mental vitamins every day. I mean, regular vitamins, we're supposed to take them each day to help boost our system. Well, hopefully whatever I'm posting can help boost other person's mental capacity.
I love that.
To deal with whatever is going on.
I love that. Well, speaking of mental vitamins and us having this conversation, he did give us a few mental vitamins in terms of looking at stress and anxiety and how to support students this time. I can leave it open to the viewers if they want to ask us any questions. And while we're waiting for them to post their questions, do you have any questions for me, Verol?
So for having worked alongside you, collaborating with you, I know you're very skilled in detecting what would work best for whatever client and eliciting a particular response. Could you tell us how you go about that?
How I go about getting what? A response to stress and...
A particular response using the different art supplies.
Okay, well,
So,
that's layered. So
oh,
I will start with this. I was trained in the modality of the expressive therapies continuum, which is the ETC model. And it looks at, it's 4 levels. So it looks at the art materials, the responses. We have to look at whether there are materials that would cause, that are like maybe fluid or they're rigid. You look at the texture, if it allows for a client to create something and then they have to like take a step back and look at what they've created, and that's called reflective distancing. So, for you, it would be, maybe verbally saying something to the person, the client, and then they have to think about, different things and come up with a solution. In the creation of the art, that may allow for that. So the different levels, you have kinesthetic to sensory. So it's material that is more like, kinesthetic is more about movement and sensory is how it feels. So there are certain materials that are on that level. And if you think about development, or I like to put it like as a child, like a really young child, they're movement oriented, they crawl, they put things in, their mouth. That's how they learn the world. And then the next level is perceptual affective, which means like the Play-Doh is blue. And then affective is the emotion. Is it, in creating this piece, is it causing you to have to deal with certain emotions that come up? And then there are some materials that would elicit certain responses because of the same nature that I highlighted. So watercolor paints, are more fluid. It might be more relaxing. Chalk pastels, you have different textures and different things that might feel like calming for a client. And some may feel like, it's so tactile that they can get the energy out. The third level of the ETC is the cognitive symbolic. So it's really like making a person have to think and strategize and, like doing collages and then symbolism. So, I once saw some years ago where my professor showed an image where it was a scribble drawing from a client, and then inside the scribble drawing, the individual found the shape of a butterfly, and she drew like a black line leading up to the butterfly, and the butterfly was orange. And that was symbolic for her because the scribble represented chaos, and the butterfly was like a sense of peace during the chaos that she was experiencing. And within all of that, there's always going to be creativity. So I don't know if I answered the question in terms of, materials.
Yeah.
There are different.
So
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, so what I'm getting from that, from the different levels, you then choose based on what you perceive to be the need of the client at that time.
So
based on the different factors at play.
As well as where it ties in also to, which is why we have to be trained in the psychology, is knowing what's happening with the client. So in the case of our topic today with stress and anxiety, say it's anxiety, that person may be coming with a lot of emotions, so they may be on the affective level, and I have to, give them materials to get them to express it and then be centered. But at the core, it's really about also knowing that we have to understand each material, and each material has different qualities that you have to know. And some clients may respond to it in a good way, and some may not because of the texture or what it is used for. So definitely in the future, we'll be having some kind of presentation about, the nature of the art materials. But this is why it's really important for someone to be trained, because a client can regress if somebody doesn't know the history of the client and how it's used. You had a question for me.
No, I was just going to say that with what you just said about clients, you've planned, clients may respond well, clients may not respond well. It just shows how with no matter what therapy modality or approach you're using, as a therapist, you kind of have to be flexible to make the switch. No, recognize what is going on and make a switch to have them work through that. So it may be that just at that point they aren't responding well to it, but later on they would. We don't know, but we just have to be flexible. And again, the beauty is that in the field of psychology, there's a whole host of things that persons can do. And there are multiple psychologists out there, and persons can go on the JamPsych website and look. They have the list of psychologists there, and counselors and therapists that they can, right across the island, that they can just call up and contact persons that is closest to them.
Yes, yes.
I see a question here from A Bucket for the Well.
Yes, that's my sister.
What are Hey sis, what are some relaxation experiential activities parents and caregivers can employ with I'm not sure what that about each and their kids within what may feel like a high stress home environment that has a lot of uncertainty? Relaxation, experimental activities. I'm a big advocate for deep breathing, taking time to breathe, taking time to relax, engaging in hobbies, turn off the TV, turn off the devices, spend time with each other, take a walk outside. The nature is very important to our well-being. Getting some good sunlight, and I'm not saying you should go out in the high noon, right? But in the late evening before the sun goes down, or the early morning for the early risers, get some sun on your skin, just to break away from the four walls of the home. Cook together, do fun things together, play games together, go back to the days of board games where you have good, clean fun. If you have elastic band, go play Chinese skip. Do things that are out of the norm to break up the
monotony
doing this right, the monotony that is happening every day. Break it up and do fun stuff.
Yeah, I agree. Or setting, as Brittany said last week, setting an intention with the child or the situation to support them. So to give them, you set an intention for, okay, today we're going to have some time to just relax, and whatever that relaxation technique would be. So
turn on the music. I think I don't know if I was talking to you, but I know I said to someone, maybe one thing that can happen is you have, especially in a household where you have multiple generations, you have a dance or a music clash going on. So you just bring up the music. If you have the internet, you have YouTube. You just search for the music from your time that you enjoy, and you just clash with each other in the household. That would be a very fun activity.
Yeah.
That would be a very fun
another
activity.
thing too is I even joked with some friends and said during this time, make a COVID playlist,
Yeah.
and enjoy yourself. But Sir Verol, we have 5 minutes left, so this has been really fruitful, and you gave us some mental vitamins about how we can try to support our students who are experiencing anxiety and stress right now, at home during this COVID pandemic. So anybody who wants to check out more information can check out his page at My Mental Vitamins. I will be here next week, but before we close, we're gonna close out with a checkout activity, and I would encourage the viewers to join, and they could post. They can be a part of it by posting it on the comment section. So I want you to think about a word, a shape, a color, a color, shape, movement, or sound that shows how you're feeling right now.
Color, shape.
Anyone. It could be a color, shape, movement, or sound.
I'm sticking with the two colors that I started out with. But it's not. Earlier I said the circle. I'm still sticking with the circle. I'm all about continuity, so I'm sending it into next week. But in terms of the blue, it is a very calming blue.
Yes.
And in terms of the red, it is the fiery red, because again, my passion is just there, and it's like a pinstripe sort of vibe where it's blue, red sort of thing, which just suggests for me that within my passion, I still find calmness. Within my passion, I find peace.
Okay. Sorry, I got somebody actually asked a question, so I guess you could talk to them afterwards, Verol, about assessment. But I like that. And actually, I have a similar color, which is my color right now is blue, a very tranquil, deep blue. And that is representing, the shape for me would be like an ocean, and it would mean calm. So I don't know if there is anybody else who posted like
Yes. Open Air JH. Well, back up, she did say that one of the activities that we could do is to a family time capsule. That's fabulous. But for her color, she said yellow. A bucket for the well. Mine is a series of yellow and white stars shooting up to the sky. Princess Nabizi, movement, slow dance. There's Lake from the.
That's my dentist. She said orange, not red in danger, but still a bit of anxiety. And Ray of Light said green circle. So thank you guys as we close. We have like a minute left. So join us next week. Thank you, Verol. If you have any questions for him in terms of assessment, you can check him on my mental vitamins. Check me out. I am doing sessions in person and online, and you can contact me at Art Therapy JA. Next week we'll be joining me will be Georgia Fullerton, who is an expressive therapist. She's based in Canada, and she'll be talking about creatively expressing depression and anxiety in adults during this time. So that should be really fun and creative. Thanks again, Verol, for your mental vitamins. It was a pleasure. Thank you, everybody, for joining us and your feedback. We'll see you next week, this time, 6 p.m. for Therapy Tuesday.
Bye.